Hello everybody, I know it's been a long time, but if anything was going to get me creating content again, it was going to be Devil May Cry 5. Now there were some leaks before E3 kind of alluding to the fact that Devil May Cry 5 might get announced. I was expecting a title card and maybe an image and then that's it. I wasn't expecting to see like full-on trailer and gameplay footage. So this series means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to a lot of people, but the series always meant a lot to me. I was obsessed with it as a teenager. I kind of grew up with it through the highs and the lows, and now we've got a fifth one. E3 could have just shut down at that point, and I would have been super happy. I know a lot of you are happy too, so let's talk about what we saw, because I have a few conspiracy theories and I have a few things to kind of run through. Like many people, I kind of thought that maybe they were going with Dante at first. Some of the facial features were the same and the hair didn't quite, the lighting I think just didn't hit it quite right. But once I realized, as soon as I heard Johnny Young Bosch's voice, I realized that we were okay. Johnny Young Bosch is just as excited about this as we are. He was like retweeting and liking everybody's, you know, excitement tweets on Twitter. And so the big notice that everybody kind of took away from this was that Nero looks to be the main character, not Dante. Some think of that as a bad thing. I think that's perfectly fine. I actually think that's the best way that it could have turned out in more than one sense. Not to sound like a businessman, but if you look at the history of how the Devil May Cry games have sold, it absolutely makes sense to have Nero be the protagonist for a new game. Devil May Cry 1, back on the PlayStation 2 when it first came out, sold 2.16 million units.
All right!
The second one sold less than that. I believe it was 1.7 million.
I'm good, aren't I?
Devil May Cry 3 was much weaker. It sold 1.30 million units.
Come on, wimp.
Despite Devil May Cry 3 being the most critically acclaimed out of all of them, it sold the weakest, and I blame part of that on the fact that it kind of had to follow Devil May Cry 2, which broke a lot of people's hearts. It was very much the Pete's Dragon of the series. It was the black sheep. It was well, it was. Not anymore. But at the time it was very disappointing because it was the soul of Devil May Cry was not in it. And then we got Devil May Cry 4, which sold by and far the best out of the entire series. Devil May Cry 4 sold 2.35 or 33 million units.
Jackpot!
And a big part of it was a next-gen Devil May Cry game. It ran at 60 frames per second, which I'm against that kind of mentality, but when you're looking at it, it does make a big difference when you go from this to this. When you look at the numbers of how well these games have sold, like why would you, from a business sense, why would you not have Nero be the main protagonist? It's also been so long since the last Devil May Cry game. This is a prime opportunity to get people into the series that have not before. And in that sense, it also makes sense to have Nero be the main character, because he's much more of a relatable everyman than Dante is. Dante is cool, but he has no real flaws. He's a little too cool for school. Nero is much more of an approachable character from a narrative standpoint. He also kind of has, ironically, he has a better chance of capturing a new audience than Dante did in Devil May Cry, Devil May Cry. When they tried to reboot the series with a different angle, they wanted to bring in the Call of Duty fan base. They wanted to bring in a very particular demographic. They did that with the redesign and the visual style, and they dumbed down the combat quite a bit to make it more approachable. As a result, Devil May Cry sold under 2 million units. I think it's 1.8 million units.
Well, this sucks.
Almost sold as worse as the Devil May Cry 2.
Hey, do your job.
it's ironic that they were trying to engineer towards a certain market and trying to get a certain amount of people to pick up their game because there was money in that demographic, but that demographic didn't click with the main character or with the style or anything like that. It's just not their game. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like I said, it's ironic now that with Nero as the helm, I think he stands a better chance of pulling in a new audience than Dante ever did. Speaking of reboot and visual design and things like that, the other thing that a lot of people are noticing is that Devil May Cry 5 looks very different than the last few games in the sense of a visual design aspect. Things are very, very, very dark in a game series that has not been that dark for a while. With this one now having such a darker, harsher color tone, and also photorealistic faces. The characters in the other games have always been sort of anime-ish, not exactly anime, but I can't find a better term to really nail it. If you look at them and you put a side-by-side between someone from Devil May Cry 4 and someone from Devil May Cry 5, you can definitely tell that, you can kind of see what I mean, where the previous games have had more rounded features, their eyes are much more rounded, and now the characters look much more like a person would, and that's throwing some people off. I don't think I think it's a little naive to expect after 10 years for the characters to all look the same. Not just from like the fact that, you know, they'd be older at this point, but just the graphic quality as well has to change because 10 years is too long. Why would you have it look the same? You know, shit is going to change. But I have another theory as to why that they look so much more different. It was actually tweeted out, this image was put out. It was Johnny Young Bosch and Ruben Langdon, I think I'm saying his name right. They are the voice actors for Nero and Dante. This picture was tweeted out of them doing facial animation, doing some mocap for, at the time, an unannounced project. Now I think it's pretty safe to say it was Devil May Cry 5. And I think that that's probably why, another reason why the characters look so much different, because they just couldn't, with the way mocap is now, you know, you couldn't have it be any other way. Okay, so now we can talk about, we can start talking about conspiracy theories and how, story details. Obviously, Virgil is in the game. Like, that's a no-brainer. That is most definitely Virgil in the trailer. He throws Nero, and if you look at his arm, it's not even shy about it. That's the same cufflink that Virgil has always worn on his jacket. We also, immediately after that bit of Nero being thrown, we cut to Nero's arm clearly having been cut off, and someone else has taken it. He's holding it right there. And Virgil has a history of taking family heirlooms for himself. In Devil May Cry 3, he took his mother's pendant from Dante. He took the Force Edge, which belonged to his father. It is not outside the realm of possibility that he would take something from his own son if it meant more power. Virgil seems to be in the mindset of, oh, well, it's in the family, so I have right to it as well. He is not above... Virgil is not above stealing things if it will accomplish his goals. I would not be surprised at all if he just kind of bred Nero to, you know, kind of have this devil bringer power grow and manifest, and now that it's considered like ripe, he's come to take it. So yeah, now we have the Devil Breaker instead of the Devil Bringer, which is always kind of an name. Now we have the Devil Breaker, which is immediately 10 times better. That's the robot arm that we saw in the trailers. It seems to be detachable. When Nero is parading outside the flying van and he's shooting at demons and things, he doesn't have the arm. And then in the gameplay footage, it pops off, it flies around, it pulls enemies closer to him. He can still apparently do grapple attacks. He can skateboard off of his own arm. Nero can actually have the arm ricochet off of multiple enemies, keeping the combo going, and then you know, kind of prepping for a bigger attack. which is going to be a lot of fun. Nero is always way more fun to play as than Dante. There's the Devil May Cry neon sign, which now is Nero's. Nero now runs Devil May Cry on a mobile sort of platform. And it was never explained in-game, but in one of the novels, Dante gives Nero the Devil May Cry neon sign. Not many people would be expected to know that. I assume it'll be covered in the game, but because the books are not written well. They're really crappy. There was also the reveal in the gameplay footage that there is a slowdown effect on some of the enemies, and this is the kind of Devil May Cry snob I've turned into, because you watch people's reactions to the gameplay footage, which is great, because everybody's super psyched for the game, and that's great. But a lot of people, when they see that moment happen, that you hear them say like, "Oh, it's like Witch Time. Oh, it's Bayonetta. They're doing a Bayonetta thing," and I just roll my eyes and just be like, that mechanic has been in Devil May Cry since the third one. Like, Dante had time stop, and it's not this. Witch Time is reactionary. The time stop is whenever you want. There's a big difference. Bayonetta's Witch Time was a counter, so you could style on them. You could punish them for a missed combo, or not a missed combo, but for countering properly. Devil May Cry was always much more punishing. It was always about not rewarding you for good things, but punishing you for bad things. And the time stop was just one ability that you had in Devil May Cry 3. But yeah, I think that's everything so far. There's not a whole lot that's been released as of yet. Just that there was this little interview clip.
Yeah, just like what you saw here with the crazy, almost Back to the Future 2 like arm there, the way he's riding on that arm. There's gonna be a lot of these different prosthetic arms that we call devil breakers. And if you watch this trailer a couple times, hopefully you'll be able to tell just at least a couple of them. There's gonna be a whole bunch of different kinds that you can use. They're all gonna do all these different kinds of special attacks. And we'll get into more about that at Gamescom. We put out a music video for the song Devil Trigger. You can actually find Devil Trigger the song on iTunes if you want. But if you find that music video online, there are going to be certain little hints in there, little Easter eggs.
About the top of the
Awesome. Ooh, about the third character. Oh, you're going to say
well, you know, I mean, I have
Then what should I call you?
I don't care. Whatever you want.
Whatever, lady. So, tell me, what's your name?
I don't have a name.
Now, I'm motivated.
こっち見ようかな。みんなが期待してる以上のゲームになってると自信を持って言えます。ぜひ期待してください。ゲームズコンで遊べます。よろしくお願いします。